October 31st, 2009. 5 senior partners at a prestigious law firm in Florida received a chilling text. It wasn't a case update. It was a suicide note sent by their own partner, Scott Rothstein. For 3 days, Scott had vanished without a trace. Rumors swirled that he was dealing with Italian mafias who had been threatening him constantly. And now, he seemed to be gone forever, with one final message. Sorry for letting you all down. Take care of my wife. His family mourned while the police searched for his body. But 3 days later, Scott came back from the dead. But how? The year is 2008, and Scott Rothstein is one of the most successful lawyers in Florida. His firm is making millions and is growing into one of the largest in the United States. To grow his influence further, Scott becomes a fundraiser for the Republican Party. He had raised millions for presidential candidate John McCain, and Governor Charlie Crist even appointed him to the Judicial Nominating Commission. He built his reputation as the state's political kingmaker, and by throwing lavish parties for his valuable connections, he has become part of Florida's elite circle. But even though Rothstein rolled with movie stars and politicians, his beginnings were far from glamorous. Scott grew up in a lower-middle-class family in the Bronx. His father was a salesman, and money was always tight. In 1978, when Scott was 16, the family moved to Florida. For Rothstein, family meant everything. He once dreamed of being a singer, but chose law over music because it offered stability. His grandmother even used her life savings to take him through the University of Florida and later, Nova Law School. After graduating, Rothstein spent 15 years working quietly as a lawyer in Broward County, building his reputation and experience. All this struggle left a mark on Scott, and in an interview with New Times, he even admitted that, "I'm a lunatic about money. I grew up poor." Then, in 2002, he took a leap and launched his own firm with just 7 attorneys. Within 6 years, that firm had grown to more than 70 lawyers and became known as Rothstein Rosenfeld Adler. Following the success of Rothstein's life looked like something out of a movie. He owned multiple mansions along Florida's coast, a 47-foot yacht for private parties, an entire fleet of luxury cars, a watch collection worth millions, and even a personal jet for weekend escapes. But with rapid success came suspicion. How could a lawyer rise this fast and live like a billionaire? Scott Rothstein's main source of income was through structured settlements. Imagine, someone wins a harassment lawsuit. Instead of getting $1 million all at once, the company agrees to pay in small installments spread over the years. Most victims didn't want to wait. That's where Rothstein stepped in. He told them, "I can get your money now." He would line up investors willing to pay the victim a lump sum immediately, but at a discount. For example, instead of $1 million stretched over years, an investor might hand the victim $700,000 up front and then collect the full payout later. The victim walked away with quick cash. The investor made a tidy profit. And Rothstein? He pocketed massive fees and commissions. Because these settlements were confidential, only Rothstein had access to the details. That secrecy turned his deals into an exclusive club, an investment you couldn't find on Wall Street, only through Scott Rothstein. So he quickly became a star in elite circles, offering trustworthy deals that promised solid profits within months. Hedge funds poured in millions, and even the Italian mafia wanted a piece. To Rothstein, the mafia wasn't a threat. They were just another investor. But this golden goose was about to turn toxic.
I think this is the most significant financial crisis in the post-war period.
There are fears the sell-off will continue on Wall Street.
Soaring gas prices, falling home prices, and rising unemployment.
The 2008 crash didn't just wipe out Wall Street. It shook Rothstein's empire to the core. banks stalled investor payments, and because Rothstein controlled all communication, the investors went after him. But the loudest threats didn't come from hedge funds. They came from the mafia, and they weren't interested in excuses. They wanted their money, and Rothstein was running out of time. By the time the FBI was circling, Rothstein's rapid success and mob ties had already raised red flags. Alan Sokovitz, a Miami attorney who Rothstein tried to lure in with one of his exclusive deals. Sokovitz wasn't impressed. The promised returns looked too good to be true, and when he pressed Rothstein to meet the actual clients, Rothstein refused.
We were offered 207% return, and I wanted to see how much money you need to invest to get rich. I calculated if you keep in $150,000 for 13 years, that $150,000 turns into $21 trillion. That's enough to pay off the entire deficit of the United States and have more money beside.
To Sokovitz, the math was impossible. It had to be fraud. He went straight to the FBI. But by the time the FBI contacted Rothstein, he had vanished. Nobody knew where he was. Most thought it was a joke, or he was busy. But after a couple days, the joke turned serious as Rothstein sent a chilling suicide note confessing that his ego and greed had consumed him. Everyone assumed the worst. But while the conspiracy grew in the US, Scott was hiding in Morocco. His suicide note was just a way to escape the mafia. But the mafia soon found out where he was and warned that if he didn't return, they would kill his family. Scott panicked this time and called his longtime friend, Steve Caputi. Steve instantly flew to Morocco and met him in a hotel room. He urged him to return to the United States and speak with the FBI because they are the only ones who can protect him. So, by October 2009, Scott Rothstein returned home and assured investors he would make everything right.
I will not stop until every single penny is paid back.
For a short time, many felt safe, thinking their money was secure. Rothstein's first step was to pay the mafia, but with the FBI's help, he turned it into a trap. He wore a wire and recorded incriminating evidence against mafia members like Roberto Cettinari, which helped them build a case. But the feds weren't fooled. They knew Rothstein wasn't cooperating out of loyalty. He was only trying to save himself. And when agents finally sat him down for an 18-hour deposition, what he revealed left them stunned.
Understand that I am capable of evil far beyond anything your imagination could ever conjure up.
Scott built his empire by surrounding himself with powerful people. His main strategy was funding political campaigns through his firm. He had employees donate to campaigns and then quietly reimbursed them. He also threw lavish parties to keep the elite close. At his peak, Scott's office became a hub of power and corruption, filled with politicians seeking favors and prostitutes chasing cash. With this influence, he began to draw investors into his settlement scheme. But it was the 2008 financial crisis that shook his empire.
I think this is the most significant financial crisis in the post-war period.
There are fears the sell-off will continue on Wall Street.
Soaring gas prices, falling home prices, and rising unemployment.
What kind of recipe is that? Overall, that's a recipe for a recession.
As new investments dried up, the truth became harder to hide. Rothstein's settlement business was nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. He used money from new investors to pay the old ones, keeping the illusion alive. Every document was fake, from settlement papers to bank statements. Even the FBI, who had been circling him for months, were stunned at the scale of the fraud.
That this scheme could well exceed $1 billion.
Scott Rothstein's escape to Morocco was not only to get away from the mafia, but also to hide from his own crimes. Morocco had no extradition treaty with the United States, making it a safe place for him to disappear. Before leaving, he even sent millions overseas, building himself a financial lifeboat. By late 2009, federal investigators raided his law firm, uncovering mountains of fake documents, doctored bank statements, and a paper trail of lies that stretched back years. Rothstein befriended officials of TD Bank and used their conference rooms to stage phony meetings. The bank officials even signed the fake documents, making his fraud look legitimate. Hedge fund managers fell for these setups, believing they were backing solid, legal deals. Facing collapse, Rothstein struck a deal with the government. He would cooperate in the investigation, giving up details about his empire in exchange for a reduced sentence. He turned on friends and colleagues, giving investigators evidence against them. But Rothstein tried to hide some of his assets and provided false material information to the government, which ultimately violated the terms of his plea agreement, thus breaking the deal of a lighter sentence.
That's right, we're breaking the fucking law. The lawyers, if we're not going to break the law, who is?
By June 2010, Rothstein was sentenced to 50 years for orchestrating a $1.2 billion Ponzi scheme through his law firm. About 30 people had been convicted linked to Rothstein's fraud, including IT specialists who helped fabricate bank records, bankers, lawyers, and even Rothstein's former wife for asset concealment. Multiple institutions were linked to the fraud at the TD Bank, which was fined $37.5 million for their involvement. But compared to other cases, the Rothstein case resulted in nearly full recovery for his victims. After his empire collapsed, everything tied to Rothstein was liquidated. Cars, watches, and mansions were auctioned off to get back what could be recovered. Rothstein always surrounded himself with politicians and celebrities, filling his office with photos alongside figures like President George W. Bush and California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Under oath, he even admitted that these relationships were key to his fraud, and that reputation was his greatest weapon. With his scam running for nearly half a decade, the real question is who protected him for so long. Scott Rothstein will spend the rest of his life in prison. But not every con artist paid the price. Some still walk free. If you want to see how a teenage scammer outsmarted airlines, banks, and even the FBI, check out the story of Frank Abagnale, who stole millions while posing as a pilot at just 16 years old.